The Book of Proverbs, verse 2. Ill-gotten treasures have no lasting value, but righteousness delivers from death. Okay, so, hi everybody, this is Christian RPG Gamers. So, for today's video, I wanted to talk about Ghost of Tsushima. And I mean, maybe I'll make this like a partial Christian review, but also just kind of talking about it a little bit too. So, I also want to put some kind of like a Christian spin on this in some way, shape, or form. So I'm gonna go through one for a positive and like a more mixed and then like more of a negative disposition from the series. I think one of the positives I would say is it has a fluid, solid combat. Something that feels more like a mixed. It feels like a real place, even if that reality would be kind of lame in a sense. And then a more negative is a lot of times the rewards feel lackluster and they can be like very repetitive. So those are three things I wrote down. Yeah, like the combat. Yeah, like the combat is pretty good. The camera can be a little bit weird sometimes, but it is pretty it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun combat, and you can do like normal like samurai, and there's like then there's like the ninja combat, and there's like using the bow and arrow. So yeah, the combat is definitely something I think is very important to the game. So that's definitely a strong positive and like more mixed, again. So again, the world it does feel real, but again, like as I would say, it's a very it feels like it's set more in the real world, but it also again it feels kind of just at times like a little bit boring, like the environment in the world. Again, it's just normal people kind of living their lives in like a in a fictional like Japanese culture. It's like, I don't know, there's not much there. It's not bad, but it's not like great either. And then yeah, it's again, as I said, some of the bad stuff. Like the reward system. It's like the game, and like, even like it's very repetitive. A lot of the places in the map in the world, you go to, you do them like once, and then you just they kind of feel like just very underwhelming. And like there isn't very good reward systems. Like there's some cosmetic stuff, but you never really feel that satisfied for like grinding in the game. So those are like the three different things. And again, I would also make the argument that this game, at least in my opinion, what I would see is I think this is the kind of game where you just want to focus on like the main story and the main story content. I don't think going off the beaten path is not great necessarily in this game, at least from what I can tell. And there are some interesting. They do have side quests, but something like most of the side quests, they have like the more traditional side quests where they have like the specific characters, and you can go down their specific routes and see their stories, like the key characters. I think those are pretty good. And they have a whole bunch of these like little side, they call them more like side tasks, most of those are just kind of like a little couple-minute long. Not great, but they're not bad either. It's kind of like a hit and miss. It's like 50-50. Some of them are decent, but some of them are just really bad. Now you can do them again. They give you like these little charms or some like little utility buffs, but or you get some resources, but they feel like filler, and most of them aren't good. So, but the main story is, I would argue, very well made and very well done. And it also has, I would also argue it has, is great writing. So, but it's not really like an RPG game. It does have some RPG mechanics, but it's very light on that area. It's more kind of like just a linear story plus a kind of like almost like it has some combat with like a linear story. You could think like like Tomb Raider or I don't know, like kind of like your more normal Sony game, where it's like a third-person game, and it has a linear story. You fight in combat. You can go around the map and pick up some stuff. Maybe even like Far Cry a bit. And there are some moral choices you can make, but they're very insignificant. And there's hardly any, but there are some, but it's very, very light. Okay, so some of the other notes I wrote down. So when it comes to like, even some Christian themes in it. So, there's the idea of like personal revenge, and the idea of honor. And I guess, like, again, like, it raises a lot of questions, like the idea of revenge, and, like, in holiness, is it God's job to serve revenge, or is it our job to serve revenge? And are different, like, feudal lords and other members of, the government and stuff, how much of it is their job to serve justice? And again, should they, how much should you care about your people or not? And it really pushes a lot of these questions that are very difficult to answer. And honestly, like, even biblically, it is the responsibility of people in power to help their citizens and their people. And you can see in this game, the people in power just don't care about the people. Now, the only one who really cares about anybody is the main character, and then maybe your uncle. But just about everybody else just doesn't care about anybody else in the world but themselves. And they don't serve justice the right way. And they won't do anything. And that in and of itself isn't evil. So, but it does raise a lot of questions about, also again, like the idea of honor. Because the game offers you multiple systems, and although it is a very light RPG game, it does have some RPG mechanics, like maybe more philosophical questions and ideas that you can do. Like, the idea of you can play more like a ninja, where you do stealth, but in this game, stealth is frowned upon. At least by, again, like, there's a whole idea of honor and like dishonor, and it's dishonorable to use stealth and, like, assassinate people and stuff. But sometimes it's also necessary. Again, like, it really teaches you, like, the idea of black and white morality getting changed to, like, moral gray being mixed. And you can play as an honorable samurai who refuses to refuses to use bad techniques and things, and keeps his honor intact, and fights with, like, a sense of pride and dignity. And then also again, I'm not gonna go too deep into the spoilers, but as the name of the literal game is called Ghost of Tsushima, your destiny, your fate is to become the Ghost of Tsushima. So you do have to use some stealth, and the game forces you into certain scenarios where you have to become like an assassin or something. But there are a lot of moments in the story where where again, like you can choose to be honorable or be dishonorable, but you are forced by the it's like almost like the idea of free will versus what they call divine ordinance. In holiness is like is it God's will for certain things to happen no matter what, that were pre-planned ahead of time, or do people have the ability to make their own future? And I do feel like this game it does talk about the idea of because like you are forced to become the ghost, but that is also like your destiny. So again, like there are a lot of ideas about honor, and again, these are. I feel like it's great storytelling at the same time. Okay, so then, and I think one of the last things on my list here. I wrote 4 bullet points for topics. I'll go through the list of 4 things I wrote down here, and I'm gonna go a little more in depth. And I guess afterwards, I used up the. I'm gonna go a little bit off. I mean, that's all I have for the script. So the first one is called about the idea of oneself. The second one is the idea of like personal reflection. I guess the third one I wrote down was stealth, and the fourth one is about idea of like passion or desires. Okay, so so I feel like this game it does introduce it does mess around with a lot of ideas. I think the first one I'll go with is the idea of like the idea of reflection, or you could even say the idea of meditation. So there are times in the game where you can just kind of stop like the story and stop with all the stuff that you're going through, and you go to like a hot spring or something, and you just kind of like. Now it's a little bit morally gray. It shows it shows a little bit of like his rear end naked or something, but it's not. Again, it makes the game feel more realistic. That's probably the way it was, back then. But and you go into like the hot springs or something, and you can sit there. And obviously, the video game in real life, the time frame, you might sit there for like a minute in game. It's probably like it could be like it could be multiple hours. Technically, but you can reflect on the things that the story that you went through, and it kind of like you work on healing your heart and soul, and you can meditate on, and again the game will offer you multiple pathways that you can choose to go down, or the idea of like peace and chaos, so you can choose to you can choose to you can focus on the positive and you can focus on the negative, and they both kind of lead you down a similar pathway, but it's just like a different like method of how you want to go about it. It's like you went through some big battle, and maybe someone you cared about ended up dying, and you can sit there and you can reflect upon I don't know, like their death or something. And you can be like, no, I'm angry against these. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember all the story points, but like, I'm angry at the people who, betrayed me or something. And you can focus on that negativity, and then that will help you by focusing on the negative aspects. You can deal with the bad thing and kind of purify it out of your system. Also, you can focus on like somebody's like like their honorable behavior or something. And again, like maybe that will give you some sense of like internal peace or something. Or again, like you can focus on different things for different reasons. and there can be all sorts of different stuff that happens in the game. And you can, again, it also offers you a handful of other things, like they had these little, where you can put these little bamboo rods up or something. You can chop those down, or you can build like I think it's like a. So you build this like you can build several different things. You can build a little. I can't think of the terminology. The little thing where you can write down 3 different like marks on it, and you can also make a headband. So you can look at the environment and like. Again, like a good like meditation or something. So that's one thing I kind of liked. I mean, you could even look at it from like a Christian point of view. The idea of like finding a sense of inner peace, and sometimes like you have to mourn the losses of the people you cared about. Even dealing with like the internal wounds and stuff. So that was. That's just like something that's like very interesting. I feel like, I guess one of the other ones was the idea of passion, or like your inner desires. There are again like a lot of like the morality system, like the alignment system in this world, is all about like peace versus chaos. Like, even like the Dungeons and Dragons alignment, I think they call it like the chaotic alignment, like the lawful alignment. And a lot of your choices, they push you in conflict, and like, it makes for some interesting storytelling, and it helps with like immersion into the world and like the idea of like RP, like role playing characters in the world, and like the stories. And then a lot of like the other characters you meet in the world. They also can be very selfish and have a lot of personal like desires and stuff. I'm probably not gonna. I don't know if I want to go too heavy into the spoilers, but honestly, the main story of this game isn't really that long. It's like maybe like a 4 or 5 hour long story. But I might give like a couple minor spoilers that won't really like over the top break it, but I'll try to keep them light if I can. But like maybe I won't mention the names, or I'll try to like I'll try to do a little bit light. But one of the characters you meet in the story, it's like you find that like a lot of the villains in this world tend to have a lot of or even like the anti-heroes and like the villains, they tend to have a lot of very deep like opportunistic sense of desires that they have, and their passions and their desires, they trap them. Because they always want more, or they need to feel like they need to protect themselves, and even a lot of the heroes in the world or whatever, a lot of people have a lot of personal desires, and it reflects humanity. But most of the desires that they have are very bad motivations. They tend to be I guess like even the other point I was talking about, the idea of like self. A lot of these things tend to be very selfish, and sometimes they believe it's their personal sense of honor, but again like the morality can turn very gray. So, and I'm gonna try to keep the spoilers light, but like there's the old lady you end up helping out, and she helps you during your journey, and she wants personal revenge, and like this revenge, it consumes her. And like you do feel like it's just that the bad people deserve what they deserve, but the lines of morality turn extremely gray also. So I guess there's like I'm not really sure if I have too much to talk about the idea of stealth. But stealth is a thing in this game, and you can use it to like complete missions and stuff, but. Again, like, it really does blur the morality to gray. So yeah, okay, yeah, so I guess like these are some of my like review points. I would say overall, I do think this game is it's a very well made game. Again, it makes you feel, it really pushes your feel buttons a lot. and it does delve into a lot of difficult like moral choices and dilemmas. And again, it's very well written, and the world feels natural and it feels real, and it's mostly smooth and comfortable. But I would make the argument is this: I think this game is great. Again, I know I talked about this earlier. I think this game is a great video game if you make an effort to just focus on the main stuff and just do a little bit of some of the side extra stuff. But it's again like it's a great main story game, and maybe you need to get leveled up, or you need some extra like equipment or something, and then you just do some side stuff just to help you to get some extra like gear or something. I think this game excels and shines then. But most of the time in this game, when you go off the beaten path, it's just kind of lame. Like I don't know a nicer way to put it. Again, like the main story is really good, and some of the side stuff, especially if they have like the side stuff that are specific quests, you can go down with specific character names, and usually those ones that are like in depth, those ones are very well written most of the time, and they can be really interesting. But most of the other side content, it just kind of feels lame. It's just there for like filler, and that's not that interesting. But I mean, and again, some of the side objectives, like just like in any RPG game that's open world, and they can be fun. Like again, like certain things, like going out and liberating like a fortress, so you can get like skill points or something. And again, there are aspects that I wouldn't even necessarily say they're that fun, but that you kind of need to do. Also, this game, if you put it on the easy difficulties, this game, to be honest, it's really not that hard, to be honest. Like, some of the stealth missions are extremely difficult, but that has nothing really to do, at the end of the day, with, like, the difficulty of the game. It's just because most stealth missions tend to be just very difficult. But something I talked about earlier also is the idea of the reward systems. It's a very hit and miss. It's kind of like the idea of when you play like the video game like The Witcher 3. I know it's like almost like a meme. How long is this going for? It's like you go out and you do this quest, and they give you like a low level like iron sword or something. Most of the rewards in this game are not very satisfying. Because, like, the game will give you access to multiple sets of equipment, but you don't get access to most of that extra equipment until about 50% of the way through the game, and sometimes even further. And it's like, now if you're like a veteran player, or you knew what you were doing going in, that could be worth it. But it's like you can't really mix and match. You can wear a specific set, and that specific set will give you bonuses in a specific area. But it's just not very satisfying. Like they have a couple different sets of like I don't know if you get multiple weapons, but and they do have a little bit of variety, but it's just not very good. Like, and in the game, you can choose to play multiple different play styles, but again, it's just not that great. And if you're gonna go down like,
stay away from there until I've killed them all.
It's like if you play Assassin's Creed like Odyssey, yeah, there's 3 different styles of combat or something, and that's true. And this game kind of reflects Odyssey a little bit, but it's like, it rewards you if you go down a very specific pathway. Like, if you go a full-scale assassin, the game can be very good. Or if you go a full-scale ranger, or like a full-scale samurai, and maybe you can use a little bit of some extra stuff, but I don't know. I mean, the combat is very enjoyable.
Looking for me?
But yeah, like again, like they have cosmetics. I mean, to be honest, some of the cosmetics are amusing. Like they're kind of funny and they're amusing. So yeah, like okay, I'll be real with somebody. Like some of the cosmetics in this game, I do like. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Again, this game, I feel like it's not a game that's meant to be played probably more than 20 hours. You play it for like 20 hours, you beat the main story, you have a good time. There's a DLC you can play. DLC is pretty solid. It's just, it does feel at times like a AA game, which I'm not, again, it's hard to even keep track of what is AA and AAA these days, but it's like, again, like there are some cosmetics that I did like, and they can kind of like, you know, they can be fun for like a couple minutes, and like I did like the armor set where you can like, it's like the Traveler's Attire, I think it's called, and that armor looks really good, but it's terrible in the game, and it's like. I think it gives you a small boost to your movement, and like, again, it helps you to find stuff. And again, there are things I like about. There's a lot of things I like about this game, but yeah, like again, normally you get one set of armor and a weapon, and like, also you level up your equipment. And you probably be fair to even compare this game, honestly, to like Horizon Zero Dawn at times. Again, like you can get multiple sets of equipment. And you gotta level each one up, and I don't know, it's fine, right? It's not that big of a deal, but you never really want to play or use more than one. And again, like I do feel like in an RPG game, like there needs to be some kind of reason for you to want to do stuff. Like I know that the reward in and of itself is you get to enjoy the content. But sometimes, like, it feels like there should be something a little bit more deeper there. And the reward systems just aren't great. They're not bad, but they're all not great either. Oh yeah, like, you get these little charms or some, like, little bonuses you can, like, put in, like, your slots. And again, it does offer you a little bit of variety, but I mean, I don't know. It's subjective at the end of the day. Here, I'm gonna just, I don't know if I got two. Oh. Well, let's. Okay, so yeah, let's just watch this one again a little bit more. Yeah, those are all my notes though. And again, like it does all the things that you would expect like an open world like RPG style game to do, which is definitely not a bad thing. But it's like, you know, you have a little horse that you can ride. Like again, oh yeah, one thing I do like about this game is instead of like, you know, having a massive mini map, it has a very small compass at the top, or throughout the world you can see little icons, but it has the guiding wind. Like I pretty much I played on the PS5, but you kind of like, you know, you scroll, you put your like finger and you scroll a little middle touchpad, and like the wind will go out and it'll guide you to places. And I really like the guiding wind. You know, it's very, very good. Oh yeah, like the music is also very good. And like you can get special versions of the guiding wind to have you go to different places. Like you want to find like different I guess there are upgrades you can find. I mean, it is fun to explore the world for a while, but like you can get the maximum health and the maximum, I think, like the stamina buffs. And like there are some fun stuff out there, but I mean, it obviously makes you look like a boss fighting in the battles, but And then also you can get like a little flute, and you can like change the weather in the game. Now that's a little bit shady, but oh, I guess one other thing I'll talk about in this little like Christian review kind of it. So okay, so obviously this game is set in a fictional world, and so this map area never existed. It's kind of like Kingdom Come Deliverance. Like Kingdom Come Deliverance is set in a real world location, but all of the major events that like you're with Henry, none of those things ever actually happened, or it's sketchy. Like I mean, I think some of the characters they talk about in this world, they might actually have existed, but it's like like these specific characters, like the main story and stuff. It's just like a made up world. It's fictional, so it's set within the real world, but it also at times has some fantasy aspects. Again, like I know some of the examples like this game could be compared to is like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But then again, I mean, comparing a game to like another game, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, is a crazy good game. And I guess some other games that I kind of see when I play this game. Yeah, there's The Witcher 3. Like Assassin's Creed Odyssey was based kind of off of The Witcher 3, also regarded as a great game. Maybe a little bit of Breath of the Wild, also like a top tier Nintendo game. Maybe even like maybe a little bit like Red Dead Redemption. And there are some games that this game could be compared to like a little bit of Horizon Zero Dawn, and or games in those type of genres. But this game is also really good. Oh yeah, this is the point I was trying to get at. Okay, but again, it's set in a world that is supposed to be set in the real world. Now I don't know the exact timelines can be a little bit sketchy. I mean, it feels like maybe like again, I can't keep track of the exact time. Maybe like even like 1800 maybe. Like some kind of like a feudal Japan. Again, like they talk about like Genghis Khan and like they talk about Japan because it's set off of a little island off of Japan called Tsushima, and it references other characters. I think it like references China or a little bit maybe, or some other places like we call it the Oriental Empire. It references some hypothetical ideas that like some places could exist. And they reference Genghis Khan, I think, a couple times. Or like the idea of like the Khans, right? Like there's the Khans, and like his name's Genghis, and he's part of the Khans, the head leader of the Khans, right? And it references like the samurai, and like they're supposed to be like they're like a feudal lord's hometown. I think is in like Japan somewhere. Although I'm not an expert on like the history of this place, but like the hypothetical ideas, it's very referenced within the real world, like at least several hundred maybe years into the past. It's hard to keep track of the exact timeline, but it's mostly medieval. But again, like the game is supposed to be set within the real world, but they also have some fantasy aspects to it. And to be honest with somebody, like this is a little bit of a sketchy area. And also, as like a Christian, this can be a little bit of a sketchy area, but I do like fantasy a lot. I don't like what I generally, I guess what I used to describe like quote unquote I call like the evil fantasy, like the dark stuff in it. But like like full scale like witchcraft sorcerers or something. That's all like quote unquote like the gods or some bad vile fantasy stuff, right? But I do like a lot of I do like fantasy, to be honest. I mean, I play a lot, or I enjoy a lot. But there are some fantasy aspects in this game. So, like they have a little fox or a little bird that you can follow, and like it represents it has intelligence. And they're like some of the story. They have these little side. And they're not like a side quest. They're not a side task. They're like a special, I think, call them like a tale. and you get access to meet some like legendary characters or some legendary equipment, and like they can give you like supernatural powers. Or yeah, like the example I used earlier, like you can have a flute and you can play like a weather song and you can change the literal weather around you. Like in holiness, like that's like literal like the right hand of God. Like that's being able to change the weather by just playing a song makes you like literally like a deity level power. I mean that's not like that's like some supernatural aspects, right? Or you can get like a sword and your sword can like, have a lightning power attached to it and you can you strike with like a lightning level effect and obliterate a pool of enemies you're fighting or something. Or
Who will face me first?
again, there are some supernatural elements, and there are some things that like would have fantasy elements to them. I think you can meet some like you can interact with or meet some special level like creatures that are animated that are like you meet like you have a little fox, right? But you have like a large fox or some large animal that you would meet. What do you call them? They call them. I think there's a couple of times. There's one during like one of the tales. And honestly, there could be several. Like I don't know. What do you call them? Like, they have a different Japanese culture. I mean, they use some myth. They use some what do you call it? I can't pronounce it. The mythology or the mythological stuff. And okay, so this is a little bit of a morally gray area, I guess, like even from like the Christian point of view. Personally, I actually think that this stuff makes the game a lot more fun. Okay, so obviously, you got to keep your crap together when you're playing, like you're playing a video game to begin with. But some people are like a hardcore purist. Again, the thing is, it is a video game at the end of the day, and it is a fictional world. And like even like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like or even like some of the newer Assassin's Creed trilogy. Again, like in Valhalla and Odyssey and Origins, like you fight against some like mythological level creatures. They're like a large sphinx. They have like the big wolves or something, or they have like a large snake creature or whatever. Or the different Egyptian quote-unquote gods or beings you fight, or in Odyssey, they have like I don't know, they have like maybe large enemies or something, or you go to different places. I mean, honestly speaking, I think that makes the game a lot of fun. Because at the end of the day, it is just a video game. It's supposed to be a lot of fun. But it also, again, the problem is it's supposed to be set in the real world, or it's supposed to be set in a fictional world that you are told and you are to believe that this is set within a more historically accurate real world. And having these random like pseudo fantasy moments can kind of take a small level of your immersion away, because it's just not the way things are really supposed to be, or not the way that they normally are. But I mean, okay, but then again, I'm trying to make the channel more of like a neutral channel, right? Like as a Christian, like you read the Bible. I mean, the Bible is filled with moments that we would call supernatural, or probably these days people would probably view them as fantasy. Like in holiness, the power of the right hand of God. He performs miracles. He does supernatural effects. He can literally do anything. He gives people powers. I'm not even sure if fantasy is really a bad thing, but I'm not fond of the idea of kind of mixing them together. And to be honest, they don't give any kind of justification half the time either. But so this is a very like what do you call it, contentious point in a lot of these types of games. But in Ghost of Tsushima, I do think it makes the game more fun, especially since like 90% of the world, it's set in a very realistic world, and they kind of splash a little bit of some fantasy moments in it, and they're also, to be honest, they're pretty over the top, and like it could be depicted that like and you're going through a tale and it's a very set specific tale, and you gain like some sword power, right? But again, like it is a world that it's like an Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You can drink a sleeping potion and go into their I don't know, what do you call it? Uh, they got like their Thor and their Odin and their Ragnarok events. And again, like I personally am a pretty big fan. I think one of my favorite genres is the idea of what I call it quote unquote low fantasy. And I do like low fantasy a lot. So I personally, it's also very subjective. I personally am very okay at times with this stuff, but not everybody is. So, okay. So that is one aspect of the world. Okay, so I guess the question of since this is a review, the question is, do I recommend this game? Yes or no? I would definitely say I do recommend it. Obviously there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of blood. They swear. Again, but I mean, in my opinion, this stuff is more of a sensitivity issue. Like, it is a more mature game. So, but then again, if you're an adult, it's your right to play a mature game. So, I mean, I do like this game a lot. I think it's a great story. You could play the game yourself. You could go on YouTube or something and like Gamers Little Playground or one of these other. Well, there's 100 people you could watch, but you just watch the main story as a game movie or a walkthrough or something. I think you could have a great time with this story either way. And you can the gameplay, the combat, and the exploration and stuff are very, very fun. So I mean, playing the game yourself is definitely worth it. Again, also just the main story in and of itself. If you don't really want to play it, I think the main story is also worth it. Just watching it. Because it is, again, linear games are generally very good for watching as a game movie. Because it's always going to be the same story no matter what. But yeah. Yeah, so I guess those are just some of my thoughts. So yeah, I guess as I've been trying to say more in my videos, feel free to leave your comments down below. You have a little discussion or something. I guess as I say, try not to be a dick in the comments. Don't try to be a friendly person, or at least try to be neutral. If you can't think of something nice to say, at least just try to be more try to curb yeah, try not to be toxic. Try to be at least somewhat rational and a normal, decent person. Or what your thoughts as a Christian if you play this, or any of your ideas, or however you want to say about it. Or do you think this is a pretty honest, accurate depiction of what Japan and the feudal culture of hundreds of years ago was like? Or do you think that this is or do you think it's bad, right? So yeah, again, Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I personally really like this game, and I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, probably, to be honest, I do feel like Assassin's Creed is probably a great example of a game to compare it to. I mean, obviously, no game should be really fully compared, but it does have similarities. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks for watching. God is good.